The opinions expressed by the host and guests in this show are not necessarily the views of Children's Health Defense.
Good morning, America. Good morning, world. Good morning, CHD. Welcome once again. My name is Michael Kane. I am the founder of Teachers for Choice. Today, we are going to have on former JAG attorney Davis Younts to discuss Hegseth admitting the COVID shot was experimental and illegal. This is huge. There was a clip that has gone viral on X of the defense secretary saying these things. And Davis was actually in a meeting at DOD with a senior military official discussing exactly these things just 2 weeks ago. So it's an honor, as always, to have Davis on to be able to get into these issues because this is big. This is big. Most of you know I'm a New York City teacher. I was fired over the COVID mandate. How this goes for the military will resonate and will have impact across the country. So it's so important that we pay attention to that. But first, as always, we're going to go through the news. Oh, and make sure that you stay tuned. The amazing, wonderful, fantastic Polly Tommy is going to be on after this, talking about another nightmarish hospital protocol story with Barbara, who's going to be telling her extremely scary experience during COVID. And then there is going to be another autism story of the week from the People Study. So stay tuned through the whole thing. But first, as always, the news. Harmeet Dillon has been appointed to head the Civil Rights Division of Department of Justice. Mary Holland just retweeted, wow, Harmeet Dillon calls vax mandates for adults and kids an ongoing civil rights crisis. This is amazing. Let's watch the full clip of Harmeet right here.
What do we do with this mandate issue where suddenly medical professionals are supposed to tell people what to do with their body, what to put in their body, thus saith the Lord?
Well, not even medical professionals. It still offends me that the federal government's employment division has guidelines that say that employers are allowed to mandate, employers, not doctors, employers are allowed to mandate vaccinations on their employees. That offends me. That needs to be tackled in this administration.
Yes.
But, what happened to my body, my choice, which was the mantra of, so the civil rights movement, women and abortion, issues like that. We have lost bodily autonomy. We've lost parental rights to determine for their children. And as you know, in California, our fascist state of California, during COVID, when doctors applied for waivers for families that had legitimate medical needs, that waiver list was actually a list, list to investigate,
terrorist list,
and strip doctors of their medical licenses because we don't have enough. We have too many doctors in California, right? There's no shortage of competent medical help in California, and so I think this is a ongoing civil rights crisis. And it's, certainly one of the things that led me to step up and do this job for the federal government.
Wow, an ongoing civil rights crisis for adults and for children. And she is heading the DOJ Civil Rights Division. For me, she might be the best pick since Robert F. Kennedy Jr. in the Trump administration. So thank you, President Trump, for this amazing pick in Harmeet Dillon. It's actually really blows me away to see that she is heading the Civil Rights Division. So let's pay attention to Harmeet. Follow her on X. Definitely let's pay attention to her and let's thank her because those are the types of words we need to hear. Here's the words we don't need to hear. Back in New York City, I'm dealing with a mayoral race here, and there is a man named Zoran Mamdani who is running for mayor. We now say that everyone needs to be very cautious of this guy because of his medical freedom views. Let's show the clip of him saying, no, he will not rehire fired workers.
Two questions. We have someone on the chat, Maul and Bethel, right? Like yourself, first-generation immigrant, NYPD police officer, rose to the rank of intelligence detective, terminated by the Eric Adams administration without due process, without a department trial, without ever being charged criminally or civilly for failure to take a vaccine. What are your thoughts on that? On your administration, would you hire Marlon Bethel back?
You know, I struggle on this in that I think it is, on the one hand, can absolutely understand the frustration of someone who has lost their job in a time when the city is tearing apart so much of the same policies that were made at the height of COVID and has arbitrarily decided which ones to keep and which ones to take. I mean, I'm right now in the state legislature pushing back against the governor's attempt to ban masks, which would sound ridiculous if I told you that a few years ago when it was illegal to not wear a mask. And to have all of this at the same time, I understand where that frustration comes from. On the other hand, I also do deeply feel the importance of following public health mandates in a pandemic emergency, especially when you're a public worker. So I think ultimately, if you ask me today, would I be hiring Marlon back? I think I would fall on the side of no, because of the concerns around the necessity of upholding that public health mandate. And yet I also don't want to pretend that this is simple or straightforward, because there are so many contradictions. And I think that one of the contradictions that that really stuck with me was how we had a different set of rules for workers than we did for celebrities. And I think what New Yorkers want is consistency. So that's where I am today, but I understand it's not simple, it's not straightforward.
But again, this is not really a vaccine issue, in my opinion. This is a civil rights issue. This is a worker rights issue. This is someone that worked for 2 years prior to this mandate during a pandemic when most New Yorkers were in there and was previously infected and had natural provable antibodies, which the CDC said were acceptable as to had the same level of protection that the vaccine did. This is more of a worker rights issue. So, sitting there and saying, oh, I care about homelessness, I care about worker rights, I care about the middle class, when we see a completely totalitarian dictate come down from a government that made absolutely no sense. Because like you just said it yourself, Kyrie Irving could play basketball, but Marlon Bethel couldn't go to work 2 years later. I mean, to me, it's kind of a hypocritical stance, in my opinion. How, because to me, this is not a vaccine issue at all. This is a civil rights, worker right issue. This set, honestly, New York City back, labor rights back, probably 100 years.
I mean, I hear you, and I understand the contradictions at the core of it. I think my concern comes from the likelihood of, that we could be in a new pandemic and the necessity of following the public health guidance that we put forward in that pandemic. To the places where I absolutely hear you is the contradictions of the guidance that we've been given thus far, what we're continuing to uphold, what we're rolling back. But that's the central core, the tension that I have is, in that moment when the science has us believe that this is the most effective way to counter it, shouldn't we have public workers be the ones who are the first to showcase the necessity of taking that step?
Man, in my opinion, that man needs to be nowhere near power. That's my view. That's not necessarily CHD's view. But this guy just said the necessity of upholding that public health mandate is more important than bringing back fired workers. They want to be able to do it again. They don't want to bring back anybody fired because that means maybe we can't bring in a mandate like this again. And he said New Yorkers want consistency. You know what that means? That means Michael Caine as a teacher would be fired, and Kyrie Irving as a millionaire basketball player would be fired too. Consistent. Speaking of New York City politicians that I love, Brad Hoylman retweeted a CHD article. You know you're doing the right thing when RFK Jr.'s quote-unquote nonprofit takes a shot at you. And what that was about was an article they wrote about the RFK Jr. Act, where Brad Hoylman stole Bobby Kennedy's name to promote a bill that will surveil the medical records of all New Yorkers. I replied to that, and I said to Brad, you know you're doing the wrong thing when you want to track the private personal medical records of New Yorkers. And I pointed to a little cartoon that shows Brad Hoylman spying on New York City residents and their medical records peeping Brad Hoylman. So everybody in New York, May 14th, we are going to Albany to fight against the Orwellian named RFK Jr. Act and also to support a slate of bills called the Human Rights Agenda. May 14th, go to teachersforchoice.org for all of that information. It's really important. CHD is suing the CDC. CHD, Children's Health Defense, has announced that they are supporting a lawsuit against CDC over a program that forces pediatricians to give the COVID vaccine to kids on Medicaid. So children who have to receive Medicaid, their parents might be poor and don't have health insurance, they're forced to get the COVID shot as young as 6 months. So I just want to point out, as Brad Hoylman wants to say that CHD is RFK's organization or nonprofit, they're suing Kennedy CDC right now, where Kennedy sits at the head of HHS. CHD is suing because CHD stands on principles and not politics. Thanks, Brad, for your opinion and for checking in with us on all of that stuff. And before we get into Hegseth and bring on Davis Younts, an excellent, phenomenal article in Politico about Bobby Kennedy. RFK Jr. isn't staying in his lane, and Trump is thrilled. All of this news will be in the show notes after the show is done live streaming, and you should check this one out. They talk about how the Maha vote is viewed by Trump and the Republicans as critical in the midterm elections, and how Bobby Kennedy is being given more latitude than any HH secretary in history. I believe that's true. I think that's a good thing. And people know I've been saying this for years. Medical freedom is a voting block. We are a voting block. We need to continue to step into that, and we need to make sure politicians know what our wants, needs, and desires are. Definitely read that article. The second half of the article talks about some negatives that are happening, and I don't often say this about Politico. It's very well done. I recommend everybody read through that entire thing. So before we bring Davis on to discuss Secretary Hegseth and this bombshell where he just said the COVID vaccine mandate for the military was illegal and experimental, let's watch the full clip of Secretary Hegseth making this bombshell statement. Let's roll that.
We're back with more changes at DOD, and this time an update on COVID-19 and reinstatement. We all know that the previous administration issued unlawful orders on mandatory vaccines on an experimental vaccine, COVID-19. You know it, we know it. We're doing everything we can, as quickly as we can, to reinstate those who were affected by that policy. It hasn't been perfect, and we know that. We're having an ongoing conversation with you to get it right, working with the White House as well. We want anyone impacted by that vaccine mandate back into the military, people of conscience, warriors of conscience, back in our formations. We hear you, and we're working to get updated guidance as quickly as possible. So kind of here's where we are on more guidance we're providing right now. So in January, the president issued his executive order. We jumped right on it. In February, I directed the department to take corrective action regarding this specific department's unfair, overbroad, unnecessary COVID vaccine mandate. We apologize then, apologize now for how it was done, and we want to fix it. So today, I'm signing a memorandum that directs the Undersecretary of Defense for Personnel and Readiness to provide additional guidance to the boards that are reviewing these cases concerning the review of requests from service members and former service members adversely impacted by COVID-19 vaccine mandate. The guidance also will facilitate the removal of adverse actions on service members solely for refusing to take the COVID-19 vaccine, including discharge upgrades and less than fully honorable discharges for individuals separated for refusing to take the COVID-19 vaccine. So we're trying to scrub all that, clean all that up. We'll also facilitate appropriate remedies for service members who have suffered additional career setbacks resulting from the previous administration's unlawful vaccine mandate. So that original EO addresses the unfair, since rescinded COVID-19 vaccine mandate imposed on warfighters during the previous administration. We know how bad it was. You know how bad it was. And through this guidance, which I encourage you to check it all out directly, because it's an update going even further than what we've done in the past, this memo is providing supplemental remedies for service members and veterans negatively impacted by the DoD defunct COVID-19 disease vaccine mandate. So more guidance here that we think is really important in getting this right. And we welcome you all back as quickly as possible.
All right, so there it is, Secretary Hegseth, with some very, very strong words. With that, let's bring on former JAG attorney Davis Younts. Davis, thanks so much for coming on, being back with us here at CHD TV.
Hey, my friend, it's always an honor.
Yes, yes. So it's always great to have you on. You always educate me and my audience so well. 2 weeks ago, you had a meeting with a senior level DOD official discussing exactly these issues. I have to say, even hearing Hegseth speak, I was hearing a lot of things that I've heard you say on interviews with me before. But why don't you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I had the opportunity with Jordan Carr and Casey Dixon. Casey's a former JAG as well. We got an invitation to the Pentagon to meet with a senior DOD official, and the whole point of the conversation was to talk about the guidance that was out there, the executive order, and where it fails, where it didn't go far enough. And one of the things that we asked for, as we said, the DOD needs to recognize this was an experimental product and it was unlawful to order military members to receive it. That's critical. We also, we frankly said, if you want to earn trust back and see real accountability, then there should be an apology. Even though it wasn't this administration that did it, there should be an apology to military members that were impacted by this. So it was incredibly encouraging to me. It restored a lot of hope in me and so many others to hear the Secretary of Defense using the language that it was an experimental vaccine, which it was, that it was an unlawful order to receive it, which is true, and that they're going to be taking additional steps to ensure, or at least to try to ensure, that military members are restored. Prior to this, everyone had been focusing on just the 8,700 that were involuntarily discharged for not getting this COVID injection. This now goes further and actually recognize all the other people that were forced out, maybe as many as 100,000 that were forced out, as well as another, thousands and thousands, tens of thousands that stayed in, but their careers have been absolutely destroyed because of the stance they took on this. So it's important that we recognize and understand there's kind of three categories of service members. And this addition to the executive order goes a long way, I hope, in helping to restore this. Now, the devil's going to be in the details. We're going to have to see what the specific guidance is that comes out from here, as well as what the guidance is that goes to the Board of Corrections for military records. But one of the things that was encouraging is I had the opportunity to draft language for the Department of Defense to provide them on my suggestions for that guidance when it comes out. So again, I haven't seen the final guidance. The devil will be in the details, but I am encouraged, and I think they are acting on good faith at this point to try to make this right.
That is fantastic. It's very encouraging to me to hear that they are utilizing you as an advisor, because you have been really my go-to person on all of these issues for years now. So that's fantastic. You've also brought up to me, I believe in our last interview, your hope that a task force might be formed and might be going forward. Is there any update on that? Is that still currently your view on what you're hoping to achieve?
It is. So I think, the next interim step to look for is whether or not there's clear guidance pushed out to the boards of corrections for military records to help fix the records and restore military members that were impacted by this. And then the question will be, how effective will the Board of Corrections be at doing that? How quickly can they get that done? Because my concern, and I think we talked about this last time, is with the Board of Corrections, it can take 18 months, 2 years for them to reach a decision. So if someone's still serving in the military, they weren't promoted because they had bad paper in their file, like many of my clients, for fighting this unlawful order. Now that the order's been recognized as unlawful, they should receive relief and restoration through the Board of Corrections. The problem is, if you might be kicked out of the military because you didn't promote by the time relief comes through the Board of Corrections. So I think beyond just Board of Corrections cases, I think there will need to be a task force set up to assist in processing and facilitating these very, very quickly. Of course, any remedy that involves Congress, any remedy that involves a huge budgetary concern is something that the Pentagon and all the layers of bureaucracy there are going to push back on hard. So I understand why the first step is the Board of Corrections, because that's a process that's in existence. There's no change in law that needs to happen to make this right. And the boards work for each service secretary. So the service secretaries can essentially dictate and even overturn the recommendations of the board. So they can make this right. I just want to see how efficient that process can be, because one of my biggest concerns now is the details of this guidance and then how long it's going to take.
That's all so fascinating. I feel like there's a number of points there we could talk for an hour about. There's just so much there. One of the things you just brought up that's so interesting is people whose careers were destroyed who are still in the military. You know, for me as a fire teacher, we didn't really have that, right? You're
Right.
in or you're out. You got the shot or not. And it's very good to see that there is guidance for those as well too. But right now, there is guidance about reenlistment, and they are encouraging those who were who were fired, who resigned, who left for whatever reason to reenlist. CHD at the Defender just put up an article. Lou, you showed me this. Could you get that up? Military wants service members ousted for refusing COVID vaccine to reenlist. Here's why they aren't. Now, it's not all of them, but one of the concerns is flu shot mandates, is other vaccine mandates. And then another thing is a document they're looking for them to sign. Let's put up the document there. We see a highlighted portion there. My decision to separate was made freely and without coercion. So this doesn't sound correct, like in line with what I've heard from Trump or from Secretary Hegseth right now. Talk to us about this, and as you already brought up, the behemoth of bureaucracy in the DoD. What's going on with this paperwork?
Yeah. So again, I mentioned three categories before. It's important to understand there's two categories of people that were forced out of the military over the COVID shot. Those that were involuntarily separated before injunctions hit in federal court and we were able to stop things. So the people that couldn't be saved, that's the 8,700. There is another group, it could be somewhere between 95 and 100,000 people who left the military, who were forced out of the military in some way because of the mandate. So some of them didn't re-enlist, they didn't renew their contract, they retired early, they got out some other way. Some of them weren't allowed to stay in, they weren't allowed to re-enlist or PCS or otherwise. So that second category is the one that the Department of Defense is having a hard time fully understanding. They're having a hard time tracking down who those people are, and they're having a hard time understanding the gravity, the sheer numbers of people that are coming from that. So this memo that you're talking about in this article was the original document that was sent out by the Air Force. So all aspects of the Air Force, the Air National Guard, active duty Air Force Reserves. This is what was sent to some of my clients and to anyone who was not involuntarily separated, but forced out by some other means or left because of the mandate. And they wanted them to sign this document saying they left freely and they weren't coerced. And the problem is, and I had many clients who fall in this category, I couldn't advise them to sign it, first of all, because it wasn't true. They didn't leave voluntarily. They were forced out. They were, it was get court-martialed at the time for many of them. We're going to court-martial you. We're going to throw you in jail and give you a dishonorable discharge if you don't follow this order, or you can get out. That's not a choice. That's not freely, leaving. That's not voluntarily leaving. That's being coerced to leave. So this guidance that was put out did not meet the president's intent, did not meet the Secretary of Defense's intent. So I can tell you, we brought it to their attention. I did some media on it, and I got an email directly from the same Department of Defense official that I met with, and they said, hey, we saw what the Air Force did. We're engaged on it. We're going to try and fix it. And so it was an issue of the Air Force engaging in what I believe was malicious compliance, trying to undermine the intent of the Secretary of Defense and the president. So they did pull back that original document. They reissued something else. It's still not great. It still uses language like refused the COVID-19 injection, and it does use, voluntarily left, that kind of language. So there's some language in there. It's probably being over-lawyered by the Department of Defense. That's part of the problem with implementation as we look at these things. But I'm optimistic that as this comes forward, as not many people come back, they're going to be aware of, they're going to continue to recognize these problems. And there is fear over litigation that you have these JAGs and these general counsels, Air Force General Counsel and others pushing back on this. But that's what was so critical about the Secretary of Defense saying this was an experimental vaccine, critical, and then saying it was unlawful and an unlawful order. For my purpose as an attorney, for most of my clients, that really is the end of it. And there shouldn't be any more of this game of malicious compliance within the DoD. Once the boss has said that and made that clear that that's the position of the DoD, that's a game changer.
Yeah, I agree completely. You know, you hear people on all sides of this thing. I don't know if Trump is sincere. Can we really trust him and stuff? I agree that that was a game changer. It's really hard to wiggle out of that. And as you know, in 2004 or thereabouts, the anthrax vaccine, experimental vaccine, clearly definitively lost in court, that they were able to force that vaccine on military members. I've told you this before. I thought there was no way the military was going to be able to force the COVID shot with that precedent looming. And it is really impactful that Secretary Hegseth referenced the word experimental. Speaking of that, when it comes to other vaccine mandates and people saying, hey, I want to come back, but I don't want to get it, I imagine that we're now dealing in different territory. Why don't you speak to the other vaccine mandates a little bit as well, too?
Yeah, so we still have a significant problem throughout the Department of Defense and how we're going to handle other vaccines. And what's happening is since COVID, there's been two things that are running counter to each other. One is prior to COVID, it was not unusual for military members to have medical or religious exemptions to vaccine mandates. That was just not uncommon. I saw it in my 2-decade career, especially things like the flu shot and others, just not that uncommon at all. Once COVID hit, now there are no religious accommodations being granted, or very, very few, and there are very few medical exemptions being granted to any vaccine. So even something that's, demonstrably not effective, like the flu shot, they're not granting the exemptions and the accommodations that they used to grant throughout the DoD. So we are seeing that is on one side of this. They're ignoring the law. They're not following the Religious Freedom Restoration Act or Title 10 USC and other laws. They're just not following them. But the other side of it is you have a huge awakening within the military of individuals who are now advocates fighting for medical freedom. They understand how important these issues are, and they have learned a lot because of COVID about how these vaccines are manufactured, what the actual efficacy of them is, why informed consent is so important. And the other thing, and it's been in the news over the last couple of weeks, but essentially the flu vaccine is an experimental vaccine every year. And just like the COVID vaccine, if it's an experimental product, then it is unlawful and illegal for the Department of Defense to mandate it. That violates an existing federal law. So this is a huge issue that's coming to a head. And I will tell you, unfortunately, I have multiple clients that are in some level of getting, processed out of the military, involuntarily discharged from the military over the flu shot. And that's a fight we're having as well. So again, the issue you're having with a lot of people who were forced out, good people of conscience, like the Secretary of Defense said, over COVID, are now facing a similar issue with things like the flu vaccine. And it comes from this idea of understanding medically, with informed consent, doing the research to understand what this actually is, the efficacy rates, and also, quite frankly, because their faith was tested during COVID, they now have legitimate, good faith, religious objections to the flu vaccine and other vaccines, and those need to be properly addressed and adjudicated by the Department of Defense. But from what I'm seeing from my clients so far, that's not happening. And that is something, that changed dramatically during COVID. So you still see this kind of doubling down on these issues within the bureaucracy of the Department of Defense.
Yeah, this is so fascinating and so important. Nationally, this is a big deal. And I would argue things are moving in the direction of informed consent and medical freedom. We had 6 states that banned religious exemptions outright. Today we have 4. It's moving actually, and I'm in one of these anti-freedom states in New York. But you are seeing that this is starting to move and to go in the right direction. I mean, thanks to warriors like you, thanks to people that are fighting. Unfortunately, we're out of time here. Davis, where can people go to learn more about you, to get legal advice? Where should people be looking to find you online?
Yeah, you can follow me on X. It's at Davis Younts on X. And then our website is just my last name, Younts, YOUNTS law.com.
Excellent. Everybody go follow Davis on X. I'm certainly following him. Davis, thank you so much. God bless you for all the great work you're doing. I'm sure you're going to be back on CHD TV sometime soon.
Thanks, brother. God bless you.
Yeah, excellent. So yeah, devil's in the details. It's not 110% perfect, but with a guy like Davis on this, I feel really, really good about where things are headed and that things are going in the right direction. And we're going to keep bringing them back for updates. And with that, we're going to bring on just the legendary Polly Tommy. How you doing today, Polly?
Good morning, Michael. I'm doing well. What a great guest. Thank goodness for him.
Oh, yeah. I just always love getting, anytime military stuff comes on, I'm like, Davis, can you come on? I don't think he said no to me once. He's always like right on it and just talk about expertise. He's just fantastic.
I'm glad you're covering that because it's so important that we stand up for the military. My heart breaks for those. They're being chased around right now as we speak for the flu shot.
Yeah.
It's ghastly. Well, Michael, brilliant work as always, and everyone get to that rally. It's very exciting. Are we streaming it?
Yes, May 14th, we will be streaming that. That's no excuse to not come, New York. We need the bodies up in Albany. But yes, that'll be on CHD TV too on May 14th.
Fantastic. Can't wait for that. Thank you, Michael, for everything you do, and we'll see you next week.
Take care.
Okay. Well, everyone, we have a story for you today. It's a hospital protocol, and it's about time we did another one of those. I did get some messages from some of you who did your story on the bus saying, please don't forget us, Children's Health Defense. You're talking a lot about vaccines, and it seems that you have forgotten what happened to us in the hospitals. We have not forgotten. Okay, and so we have Barbara on today. Let's bring her on. Barbara Vernes, good morning.
Good morning, Polly.
What a story you've got. My goodness, you survived the hospital protocol. And it always gives me goosebumps when I'm with someone who survived because so many didn't.
I know. It really is upsetting to me.
Okay, let's start with the first question I ask everybody who ended up in hospital. Did you, Barbara, take the COVID-19 shot?
Oh, no. I've been following you guys for quite a while, and I started following quite a few researchers and doctors. My Facebook feed was all research and doctors. Basically, my friends went out the window. My mother told me decades ago, when someone's trying to convince you of something and push something on you, you should be suspect because something's wrong. And I just felt there was something wrong. It was experimental. There were other treatments, but nobody would talk about those. And doctors who did were ostracized and criticized and marginalized. So something was wrong.
Okay, so what happened that ended you that you ended up in hospital? So I presume you caught a flu-type illness.
Well, first of all, my history is my lungs are, I've had Legionnaire's disease, which I also survived somehow in 16. So there's a possibility my lungs are a weak spot for me. So during COVID in 20, my significant other and I both got COVID together, the dizziness, loss of taste and smell, the whole thing. But back then in March of 21, I called the doctor. She said, stay home. Come in if you get really sick. Well, define really sick. I mean, that's what they told everybody. You didn't even go get tested. They just assumed you had it. Stay home. Only come to the hospital if you can't breathe. So in August of 21, I went to an outdoor restaurant of all places and got COVID. I tested positive 9 days later. I was really careful during COVID, the early couple of years. I didn't want to get sick, so I didn't go out. I didn't go to public places. No, I didn't wear a mask because they don't work. I got kicked out of a few places, including my health food store. He didn't know any better, but that's all right. And on about the 24th, I was supposed to drive across country alone the next morning. I was all packed. And a friend of mine said, no, you need to go to the hospital. She's a nurse. She said, call an ambulance or I will. So I called an ambulance. I was having a lot of trouble breathing. Turns out I had gotten pneumonia. I no longer had COVID, but I had pneumonia. So that's how I ended up in the hospital.
And so you get to the hospital. Do they ask you there if you've taken the COVID shot?
Yes, they did. And I said no, and I don't want one.
And how did they treat you? Did you get that coming at you quite a lot while you were in hospital? That you should have got the
No,
shot?
because I was so sick. I was in ICU for about 10 days. I was really sick. My significant other was also sick, and he was in a different hospital with COVID or with pneumonia after COVID. I told them when my positive test had been, so it had been weeks, couple weeks at least. I didn't think I had COVID anymore. I couldn't breathe.
So do you know if you got remdesivir?
I haven't accessed all my records yet. I have been told by a couple of nurse friends that I should do that. I will. I don't know. I think so, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah, that picture is a friend of mine pulled that up, and she wrote all that down while I was sick. She sent me all these pictures a few days ago. I hadn't seen them yet. It's a little disturbing to look at, but it is.
And it's difficult for you to tell the story because you were pretty out of it. Obviously, they had you on drugs and stuff. Did they vent you?
Well, in ICU, I had no treatment except a BiPAP to help me breathe, which wasn't enough. They did a CAT scan. They showed me my CAT scan. My lungs were all white, except one section up in the top of the left lung. 90% was inflammation, illness, scar tissue. They weren't sure. So he said, we're going to put you on a ventilator. At that time, we all believed going on a ventilator was a death sentence. So I called Randy and I called my daughter, Ashley, and I said goodbye. I didn't expect to live. So I thought there was maybe a slim chance, but we talked, and it was probably the hardest conversations I've ever had. Sorry.
No, it's okay. So you truly felt that you were dying?
I expected that I was not going to live once they tell you you're going on a ventilator. Back then, especially back then, it was pretty much you figured that was a death sentence.
Now, I hear your son is the hero in this story. Tell us about him.
Benjamin, yeah. Well, they put me to sleep on a ventilator in a coma on September 4th. My granddaughter's birthday was in another 10 days. So family came in from around the country for her birthday, and they also came to the hospital to see me. Ben was not invited to, this was about the third to fourth week of September. I'm not sure of the date. The hospital, the doctors called the family and said, she's not going to live. And even if she could survive, which she won't, she will be on oxygen. She will not be who you knew her to be. She will be in a facility in a wheelchair. Would she want that? The emotional blackmail trick. My now ex-husband said she wouldn't. My daughter knew I wouldn't want that. My son rolled his chair up in front of this doctor and he said, "Are you sure?" She said, "Well, we don't see any brain activity." How about that? I'm doing pretty good for having no brain activity. He said, "Are you sure?" She said, "Well, given all our testing, we think that's accurate." And he said, "Nah, we'll give her a few more days." That's Ben. He doesn't trust doctors any more than I do, so he knew.
Thank God for Ben. Thank God for Ben.
Thank God for Ben. Not many people can say their child saved their life.
I know. I kind of feel like I need to speak to Ben. So Ben said we'll give
Ben, Ben is watching, so
Okay, well, Ben, watching right now, we think you're amazing, and we all want you on speed dial in case we ever have to go to hospital.
he's my best advocate, that's for
He
sure.
certainly is. So Ben says we'll give her a few more days. What happens in those? What happens then? Because you're apparently brain dead.
Yeah, supposedly. Which begs the question, how many people did they unplug who were just fine? They just needed more time. Anyway, a few days, people started going home from the birthday. They stayed extra long. Ben went home. My daughter lives here. I think it was the first week of October that they unplugged things. She had called my daughter after a few days after that family meeting and said, I can't explain this, but the 10% of her lungs that aren't sick have started to take over. And I don't know how that's possible, but we need to talk. So this was all on my daughter at this point. Everybody else had gone home. So they did unplug me, and I started breathing on my own. That was the beginning of October 4th, I think. And the doctor, they waited 20 minutes. I didn't die. The doctor said, I guess we'll have to put in a feeding tube. So a feeding tube was put in on October 4th. So I'd been out for a month. The first date I remember being awake was October 14th. So I'm not sure exactly when they woke me up or started to take the medicines away, but that's the first. And I was very confused because I had had all kinds of weird dreams. I could hear while I was in the coma. There was a point at which they were doing some procedure, and I must have reacted to it because I remember a female voice going, it's only for a minute, it's only for a minute. I have PTSD now from knowing things are being done to me and I cannot consent. All the dreams and visions I had were about being on a floor somewhere, different places, and it was hot and I was tired and I could not get up. So my body and my mind knew something was dreadfully wrong. We just couldn't make sense of it. And so when I woke up, there was a lot of catching up. I had lost almost 7 weeks of my life. So.
And Barbara, how long was it before you were actually let out of the hospital?
Well, once the feeding tube was in, they had sent me to a second hospital. That's where I woke up. And then I was there until the middle of November. So I was there. I was hospitalized for a long time.
Did you ever see the person who said that you were brain dead? Did you ever see that person again? Because that person really needs to know that you were never brain dead. Look at you now. I mean, it's a horrific thing that they even said that to your family.
Well, it's disturbing, I'm sure, to people who are watching this who may have had a family member disconnected from ventilators. I don't even know how to wrap my mind around that. How many people were let go because it was worth more money if they died than if they lived.
They killed so many.
That's horrific. It really is.
And so Barbara, how are you today? How did you have all those things that they said you would have? Be in a wheelchair, stuck in the corner, whatever it was, not being able to breathe?
No, as you can hear, I have a residual kind of a itchy cough. I take a lot of herbs, a lot of supplements. I'm very tired. I'm very dizzy. So functioning day to day is a little hard. I lost all my muscle mass because it was anesthetized for so long. When I woke up, I couldn't lift my arms. All I could do was move my eyes. And my daughter asked me something and I rolled my eyes at her. She said, she's fine. So I've been on a 3.5-year quest to live in a new body. I woke up to somebody else's body. This doesn't feel like me. Random, weird. Last August, for example, I suddenly went deaf. I now have a hearing aid, and I'm hoping it doesn't get worse because I'll be completely deaf. No explanation for that. Nobody can tell me. Everything's different. My lungs are different. My digestive system's different. My brain is different. It's just hard. It's just, I live alone. I got myself off of oxygen a little at a time, which scared people because I would unhook it and get up, and I had to learn to walk again. I couldn't hold a spoon or write my name. They said I needed PT, and I said, no, I just need to go home and function in a real world, in my real life. I didn't think I'd ever go back here to my house. So I live alone, and I garden and do my housework, and there are days it's a little harder, but I manage.
And you're alive. That's the main thing. Is
Yeah, I am.
you're alive.
I am.
Barbara, it is really important that you get your medical records because you need to know what they gave you and what happened to you in there.
I don't know that I have asked my daughter and other people who were there, did they give me a COVID shot while I was in the hospital, unable to consent, which I will be so angry at that point. I'm not sure what I'll do, but I hope they didn't. They weren't sure. But because they had me at their mercy, I don't know what they did. I did send you a picture of some of the medicines they had me on, midazolam and, the usual suspects. So I am in the process, now that I have those pictures, I'm in the process of kind of looking at the side effects, the long-term side effects. I read research for 2-3 hours every morning, generally. So yeah, this is my new job.
Well, Barbara, I was so glad that you are here today to tell this story. You weren't killed by them like so many others. What is your advice to others who are feeling post-traumatic stress from losing their loved one? They're listening to your story and they're feeling like maybe they could have been like Ben and said, give them longer. It was such a terrible time and so much terrible things happened. Do you have any words of wisdom and comfort for the great many that have been through this with disastrous results?
Well, I do know, I guess I hate to say the word religious, but I'm a Christian, and I knew thousands of people were praying for me. I will never meet these people. They were churches across the country. My Facebook friends, Ashley got on Facebook and told people why I wasn't posting and what had happened. And they got with their churches around the country. I had thousands of people praying for me. And I know for a fact that prayer matters. You call it positive thoughts, positive energy, whatever it is, it works. So don't give up and don't read everything you can find. Find some good information. Ask people who've been through this. What should I see? Who should I watch? Who should I read? I still have people that mock me for not getting a shot, which would not have prevented this. From what I understand now, it wasn't effective, and it certainly wasn't safe. I'm glad I didn't get it.
Yeah, you're glad you didn't get it. Good. That's what I agree with you. Barbara, it's been amazing having you on here this morning. And thank you for telling your story. I'm sure it's very hard and raw and brings up lots of ghastly thoughts and things, but just know that we're very grateful to you and we're so glad you're alive. And I'm sure we have many viewers that do pray, and I'm sure they'll keep you in their prayers.
Good. Thank you so much.
And give our love to Ben.
Oh, I will. I'm seeing him this weekend. He's in theater. So I'm traveling to North Carolina by car. I can't use an airplane because I can't breathe on an airplane. But yeah, we'll see him this weekend.
Thank you, Barbara, so much for coming on this morning, and lots of love to you. And I hope you continue to heal.
Thank you so much, Polly.
Okay. All right, everyone. Well, we do have another story for you. We have another autism story, which we will keep going through April. Only got a couple of days of April left. And then we will be starting on other stories. We have stories that could go on forever and ever and ever, but we will keep putting these stories out to educate everybody. Keep sharing them if you can. Thank you for all you do to support CHD TV. We truly appreciate you. I'll be back tomorrow. We're going to be talking about whooping cough, Zen honeycut, and all kinds of crazy stuff is going on. But Out with the Truth, CHD TV will continue to go. So pray big, my friends. Stand firm and never settle. And I'll see you tomorrow. All right, everyone live. We are Vax, Periscope. Okay, so we have a special story here today. Every story is special. So tell us who you are.
I am Jeannie Smith.
And you are?
Christy Gus.
And you are?
That is Ross.
Ross. And how old's Ross?
12.
Cheese. He's 12.
Yeah.
He's tall.
He's a very big boy.
Right, that's enough cheeses. We're good.
Good cheese.
And you
Ross.
guys have driven a long way.
Yes, we did. We've done nothing but drive. We've driven back and forth to Walmart. We've driven.
How long was your trip here?
Well, it took us about 6 hours. It was really supposed to be 4.5. But, you know.
Sorry, well, thank you so much.
Traffic and
And she drove 8 before that to get to my house.
And please tell me you're staying here tonight.
oh yeah,
Yes, we are.
Okay, good.
we are.
Okay, so tell us the situation.
Okay, Ross is my third child. I have 2 girls. They're 24 and 21. My first daughter, she got all of her shots. Back then, there wasn't as many.
Can we just establish that you clearly vaccinated your
I
children?
did all of them.
So
all
what
3
was
of
your
them.
what was your mindset on vaccines? Don't worry about him. He can just. There's nothing he can break.
did
Really.
it. I just thought that's what I was supposed to do. Like I went, they told me what to do. I did it, and I just trusted them. I just trusted that everything was okay. And until a few years ago, probably 10 years ago, I didn't realize that both my daughters were also injured. Like my second daughter almost died. She got the vitamin K and the Hep B, and then they came and told me she was, she wasn't breathing. They had to take her to the NICU. She probably would have been a SIDS baby, basically. But I kept vaccinating her because I didn't know that was why. And my first daughter, she had a set of vaccines that she got 106-degree fever from. They had to do a spinal tap on her because they thought she had something, which she didn't have, but I kept vaccinating her, and I vaccinated him until he was 13 months old.
Just going back to the daughter that you thought could have been a SIDS baby, what did the hospital say was wrong with her?
They told me she was born with sleep apnea. She was born with it.
But you know that she had the vitamin K and Hep B.
She did.
And when that baby, that daughter of yours was put on, you first get your baby put on, did you look at her and think something's wrong with her?
No.
So you knew as a mother that she was okay when she was born?
She seemed perfectly fine to me. And it wasn't but a couple of hours after I had her that they took her and they vaccinated her. Then they didn't bring her back. They just told me that she was hooked up to whatever they normally hook them up to, and that she wasn't breathing. And then they told me she was born with sleep apnea. So they sent me home with a monitor, this medicine I was supposed to give her to stimulate her lungs, because they also told me that they thought her lungs were underdeveloped. So they gave me this medicine to give her, to stimulate her lungs. But that's 2 different things, sleep apnea and underdeveloped lungs. But they told me both of them, and you just believe them. You just, okay, well, this is what I have to do. So for 6 whole months, I was waking up all night long with this baby who wasn't breathing.
She was on a monitor?
She was on a heart monitor, and it would just beep, beep like an alarm. And I'd run in there and have to do CPR, wake her up, do whatever. And I had no idea, so I vaccinated her some more.
Right, but the most alarming thing about this story is that they knew her medical history of
outside?
And they kept doing
And they
it.
kept vaccinating her.
Yeah. So then I have him, and
Outside?
he was absolutely perfect when he was born. He was beautiful. Like, I had my friends that were coming to visit me. They told me, Jeannie, he's so pretty. He looks like a porcelain doll. Like, his eyes were clear. He was perfect. And she had told me about this, which makes my life even harder.
About vaccines.
About vaccines. And my husband was like, well, honey, what if he gets sick? And then, of course, I'm like, well, I don't want him to get sick either. And I didn't know enough to not do it, but I knew enough to know I didn't want to do it.
What were you afraid of?
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not being sort of aggressive when I ask this. I'm just genuinely interested.
Right.
What was going? When people were warning you, like your friends here, what were you afraid of?
I don't really know. You think you're just being afraid of them getting sick, but when we logically think about it, we know that nobody that we ever knew had diphtheria or measles or polio or any of that. Like, they're not going to get those things, but you think to yourself, you just don't want them to get sick. And like the chicken pox, well, I had chicken pox. I'm just fine. Like, they didn't give a shot for that then. They want to give it to people now because they don't want people to get chicken pox. But people who get chicken pox are just fine.
We're fine.
But we don't think about that when we're feeling bullied into it.
So did the doctors reassure you that these vaccines were fine?
I didn't ask.
And they just recommended them?
Yes.
All right, so let's go back to his history. So he was born. How was he at birth?
He was fine. He was beautiful, perfect. His eyes were clear. He was great. He was great. I have a picture of him first night, just sleeping. Like, he was born late at night, so they didn't do all this to him till the next day.
Was he outside?
And then, after we took him home, he cried all the way home.
No.
He cried every day.
Outside?
Like, he would not sleep. He wouldn't take a nap. He wouldn't sleep at night.
So he obviously had vaccines in the hospital. And what the usual ones?
I couldn't. It was Hep B and vitamin K.
Okay.
And I couldn't get him to sleep or be in any way like okay physically unless I was holding him. Like, it was already, he already had gotten sensory issues just from the two that he got to begin with. It was like it set something off in him. But I didn't know. I had two girls. I just thought, well, he's a boy. He's just fussy. Maybe he's spoiled. The girls are spoiling him. Whatever. Like, I made up all kinds of things. But then, and I kept vaccinating him. But then when it got to where he wasn't babbling, he still wasn't sleeping. He never crawled right. He like kind of drug himself across the floor.
And all the time you're continuing to vaccinate him on schedule.
Oh, yeah. Well, for the most part, I was a little bit behind, which is what I think kind of ended up getting me in trouble. Was I showed up when he was 13 months old, and I hadn't given him the 9-month ones. And he wasn't feeling good that day. He had an ear infection.
Let's go.
And they told me that if I didn't the nurse told me that if I didn't catch him up on his vaccinations, that the doctor wouldn't see him anymore. And I told her what my concerns were. I said, I feel like he's got some kind of a delay. Like, he's not doing what he's supposed to be doing. Like, I don't want to do that. But, like, he's not feeling good today, so we can't do that today. And she said, well, he'll see you today, but if you don't come back and get them caught up, then he won't be able to see you anymore because it puts his other patients at risk.
More like his paycheck at risk, but okay.
Yeah. I know that now. And I did come back when he was 13 months old, and that's when they gave him a double dose of the DTaP.
They gave him 2 DTaP?
They gave him 2 DTaPs
on
the same day. All on May 22nd, 2008. They gave him 2 DTaps, a PCV7, which I don't know what that is, an MMR, and the varicella. All in the same day when he was 13 months old.
I am pretty sure.
Well, actually, it was only a
2
year and like
DTaps
2 weeks old.
in one
2
sit-
DTaps.
in one visit is, I'm pretty sure.
Which also says it's a combination of the Hep B and the IPV. So he got 2. There's number 1, and there's number 2 on 522, both on 522. And then there's this on 522.
Look at it.
There's this.
This is a shock.
MMR and varicella.
Is this all the vaccines?
Yes, this is all that he received, but it was all in a year and like 2 weeks. This many.
Peeps, look at that.
And then they keep sending me this. This was dated like 2015. They're sending me this thing saying, "Oh, he needs to catch up on these now," but he hasn't had any since he was 13, or he was like a year and 2 weeks old. But and after that, like, it was like he lost every bit of speech that he did have. He had kind of started saying to me 2 to 3 words at a time and asking for things that, like, in a way that I could understand. But it was like he just left. And he didn't potty train till he was like almost 5. He didn't walk until he was, I don't know, he was probably over 3 when he started actually walking. He just drug himself around. He drug his legs across the floor, and that's how he got around.
I'm just absolutely amazed, shocked, horrified, don't know what the word is. From the stories that we hear on this bus, I'm amazed he's alive.
I am too, and quite honestly, that's what scares me to death about this, possible mandating the thing and taking exemptions away and all that. Like, because we have a religious exemption, and I've had one ever since he went to kindergarten, because he never went to daycare, because nobody would ever take care of him. I couldn't take him anywhere. But when he went to kindergarten, I started getting a religious exemption, and I feel like one more thing done to this child right here, he's not going to be around. I don't think he will.
He must not have any more vaccines.
So, like, if I've already decided if they take the religious exemption away, like, I will leave the country. I will do whatever I have to do, because they'll kill him. They will kill him. It's just almost too late. So,
what do the medical professionals say to you? Any doctors that you come across anymore? What's the response?
We don't really go to the doctor anymore.
Thank God. Yeah. But when you talk about this to people, what is their response when you tell them the history?
A couple of my friends think that people are just born with autism, and a couple of my friends kind of understand, how he got autism, how we all know he got autism. I don't talk to anybody. I don't take him to the doctor. We use homeopathy and all natural things. And
what's a day like for him? What have these vaccines taken from your son? What's his life like now?
This is what he does. Where he YouTubes. He likes to fast forward the YouTube videos. He watches the Backyardigans still on TV and fast forwards and rewinds them all day long. And he's still not physically, like, I still help him get dressed and make sure that his underwear are clean, and because he doesn't know if he has body odor or he needs to use a restroom, or so. I mean, I have to take care of him like he's like 2 all the time, and this is just about, as long as he's happy, this is what we get.
And what about his siblings? How has it affected them?
They are just their hearts are just broken. And like, they just, They're angry, and that's why they didn't vaccinate their kids.
So they've gone on to have children.
I have, my oldest daughter has 1, and my youngest daughter has 2, and none of them are vaccinated.
No vitamin K.
Nothing.
And how are they?
They're perfect.
They're beautiful.
Which makes you a family of vax on vax study.
Mm-hmm.
And so, can you summarize that vax on vax study of the
They are
people?
so smart. They are so smart.
The unvaccinated.
Mm-hmm. Those little kids are like they're way advanced, and like they're talking and walking and playing, and they're just, I mean, they can talk and do all sorts of things that Ross still can't do.
How old are
they? 2 and 1 and 2.
And they can do more than Ross.
Let's
So how does that make you feel as a mother, seeing the health of the unvaccinated and what your son could have been?
It's really, really hard. But in the last few years, with the help of all of the peeps, realizing that, you know, we all thought these things. We all trusted the people that we thought we were supposed to trust. I still feel like it's my fault, but I don't feel like I'm the only one who was lied to. I feel like if I wasn't lied to, that I wouldn't have made the choices that I did. So it's a really hard thing. There's a really hard line there to be able to live with it and still be able to take care of him and not just drive myself crazy, but also know that, you know, I should have done more. I should have done more research. You know, I should have listened when I was told, and it's horrible. It's really horrible because I think my baby was perfect too. They all are. They're all born that way because that's what the good Lord gives us. And then people get interfered with these perfect little lives, and things go wrong, and they go really, really wrong. And then we end up like we are.
Well, you're a Periscope peep.
We pay the price.
Peeps. She's a peep. They're peeps. Okay. So, well, you need to know, what is your name on Periscope?
It's at 4 Ross.
Oh, we know you.
And
now,
I'm lots of crazy.
You're what?
I'm at lots of crazy.
Okay,
That's
well,
her name.
the Periscope peeps are sending you so much love. Like, you send so many people love when you're on Periscope, so you are getting lots of hearts and lots of love, and we've got to show it to you, haven't we? You want to see it? Stay down, coming over to you. Oh, squeeze my big button. See, there you go. Come on. You see all those hearts?
Yeah.
And the love.
Yeah.
What's your name?
It's at 4 Ross.
At 4 Ross and
At lots of crazy.
lots of crazy. And they love you. See, we love you. We love you. We love you.
We love you, peeps.
And that's what they do, is they give love. And you know what? It's the same story as Billy's. It's the same story as so many. We're going to shoot it. Let's show Ross some hearts. Ross,
You want to see the heart?
you want to see these hearts? Look. You see those hearts there? See those?
Can you say hi?
They're saying they love you. Yeah, they love you. Okay, so we're going to sign the name on the bus. Is there anything else you want to say? You want to give some advice to that young mother that you used to be? If you could speak to yourself going back those years.
You know what? Today there's so many resources, and if I had one thing, it would have been that I would have had the internet, and I would have just dug everything out. That's there. It's there. We just,
Maybe it's on page 10 now.
yeah, but we didn't have it back when my girls were born, and I had already gotten into the, you know, just follow the herd thing. And I think it's so important that we use all the resources that we have so that we don't have to go back and think, I wish I just would have figured it out. I wish I would have done, because this is something absolutely no way, shape, or form can just go back and erase. I mean, we might be able to make our kids a little better here and there, but we can't erase this life that he has right now, or that he's had for the last 12 years. It doesn't change anything that's already happened for him. That he doesn't have any friends, and he's never had a girlfriend, and he doesn't even know what that is,
sleepover.
or spend the night with anybody, or, you know, I mean, these are things that aren't they're not replaceable for him, you know. So I think it's important that we don't make mistakes when we can actually get in there and get the information. And if people get mad because you tell them, well, then they just got mad. Maybe
And when you see this bus with all the names on, you know that the guilt that you say you feel, those 8,600 and whatever number we're on, other people that feel the same way as you.
Yeah. And that's why I got so emotional when I saw it, because I thought, this is what I've been waiting for so many years.
We watched them all live.
We watched them. We know all these people, and we've cried with them. And I just saw it, and I thought, I finally get to be around people that understand that, you know, this isn't my fault, that this isn't his fault, and they know that I'm just not by myself anymore. That's why this has been so important to me, because it was a lonely world before you guys came into this thing and started finding all these people. It was really lonely.
Well, you're never going to be alone again. This is one big family around the world, standing together, and we're gonna finish this off as a team. People's truth,
and we'll be with you.
Yes, we're all together. All right, should we sign the bus? Do you want to sign the bus?
Do you want to go out and sign the black bus?
Okay, let's go and sign the bus.
And we can go swimming.
We'll have to go and check which number you were on, because they're out there. I can hear them.
No school at all. No school at all.
No school. Billy will agree with that. Oh, Billy's not as polite as you about school.
Are you going with her?
Can you get down?
You can sign a form saying you don't want
Guys, if you don't want to be on camera, like, be around the way.
So what number are we on? Who's the number person?
8668.
8668. 8668.
And I was looking for some spots. There's a few spots. Okay. Here's the pin. And then wipe your spot off.
Okay.
Oh, I can't block them. I can mute them. I can't block them. Take it back down.
8668. Oh, woo!
Come over here, Ron.
That pen work okay? Yes, it was perfect. Have you put your daughter's name on? No, I didn't. You need to. Okay, let's see if I can back to the fire. Here, let's just put it right here. So what number's the last number? 8670.
Yep.
So 8670 has been signed on the bus. Hello, Mommy. You can come on for your story. I did already. Oh, I'm crazy, Mom.
I'm so glad I'm always being nerd now. So thank you so much.
Power of the people. Yeah. All the people's truth. Yeah. And how old are you?
14.
14.
Say hi.
Nice to meet you, Miss Polly. Say hello. Lovely to see you. Thank you for coming. Thank you. All right, who's next to do a story? Look at all these people. Okay, we'll come off this one and we'll come back on another one.
I don't know. I mean,
This and all CHD TV programming is made possible by generous support from viewers like you. Please consider making a contribution today to keep our programming going strong. Thank you.